Have you ever noticed that anger can show up very quickly and very loudly? Maybe it's irritation when someone eats your food, frustration during an argument, or intense anger when someone you love is mistreated. Anger can feel powerful. But here's something many psychologists agree on. Anger is often not the first emotion we feel. Instead, anger is usually a secondary emotion, a protective response that hides more vulnerable feelings underneath. In other words, despite what we learned from the movie Inside Out, anger is often vulnerability wearing a very loud, defensive trench coat. If you're new here, hi, and welcome to my channel, where we go outside the box to learn a little bit of everything, all of the time. Why the brain uses anger. Anger is actually a protective emotion. When we feel something painful, like rejection, embarrassment, fear, or sadness, those emotions can make us feel exposed or powerless. Anger does the opposite. Anger makes us feel stronger, more in control, and ready to act or defend ourselves. When we are angry, we feel that heat in our hands, pounding in our chests, and suddenly our mind works faster, despite our impulse control getting worse. From an evolutionary perspective, anger can activate the body's fight response, increasing adrenaline and preparing us to protect ourselves. So instead of feeling hurt or vulnerable, the brain sometimes switches to anger, which feels safer and more powerful. We would often rather yell at the person who cut us off in traffic than cry in front of them. So what lurks under that trench coat of anger? When people slow down and examine their anger, they often discover another emotion underneath. Hurt is one of our mind's favorite ones to disguise. Someone says something that deeply affects you. Instead of feeling the pain directly, anger shows up first to protect you from getting hurt more than you already were. Fear. When we feel threatened, rejected, or uncertain about the future, fear can transform into anger. The true fight in our fight-or-flight response that once kept us safe from predators, but now has us fighting on the front lines of a jump scare. Shame. Feeling embarrassed or ashamed can quickly turn into defensive anger. Embarrassment is hard to feel. We get hot in the face, sick in the stomach, and feel all eyes on us. It leaves us feeling small and raw, so we can't help but over our raw selves with a bit of thick skin and hot hands. Sadness. Loss, disappointment, or feeling unappreciated can sometimes show up as irritation or rage. Oftentimes, suppressing sadness or feeling unappreciated can lead to resentment and anger in the future. Feeling disrespected. When people feel ignored, dismissed, or treated unfairly, anger often emerges as a defense. Nobody likes feeling neglected or mistreated, so our mind makes us feel heard by giving us a way out of those vulnerable feelings. Why does anger feel so strong? Anger feels intense because it activates the nervous system. The brain releases stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, and the body prepares for action. This physical reaction is part of the fight or flight response. Because anger is tied to survival instincts, it can feel very powerful and immediate. When anger appears, it can sometimes help to pause and ask a simple question. What am I actually feeling right now? If possible, removing yourself from a situation for 10 minutes is all it takes to avoid a messy situation. Some useful questions include, did something hurt me? Am I feeling disrespected? Am I afraid of losing something or someone? Am I feeling embarrassed or rejected? Keeping these questions in mind, what I always suggest to people is to use the emotion wheel. Though it may seem childish at first, you would be surprised by how much simply being able to identify your emotion can help. Often, once the underlying emotion is identified, the anger begins to lose some of its intensity. The goal isn't to eliminate anger. Anger itself is not bad. It can be useful. Anger can signal that a boundary has been crossed, motivate change, push people to stand up for themselves or others. After all, it was created to help us survive, to protect us from threats. Even if those threats look more like your boss yelling at you than a panther trying to eat you. The goal isn't to suppress anger. The goal is to understand what it's protecting. Anger often feels like the main emotion, but often it's actually a shield protecting something more vulnerable beneath. And when we learn to recognize those deeper emotions, we understand ourselves and others much better. Thanks for watching, and remember, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but still always better than a master of one. Comment what other random things you would like to learn.